Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 kids who went to jail for crazy reasons. Thousands of people are sent to jail or prison every year, and normally we think that prisoners are scary, tough adults. But what if they were just cute kids? These are 10 kids who did shocking things and were sent to jail because of them. Before we get into it, leave a like and subscribe, and comment I subscribed and I'll try to reply. Coming in at number 10, we have Zachary Neagle. This is one of the most baby-faced criminals you'll ever see. In 2009, Zachary Neagle fired a shotgun at his father's head while he was sleeping on the couch in their family room. Images of him in a yellow and orange jumpsuit looking frightened went viral, as this is such a shocking crime. And the fact that Zachary at the time was only 14 years old made his crime even more outrageous. He sat silently looking at his lawyer throughout the whole trial. While in court, he was chained up with handcuffs on his arms and a metal brace around his waist. He also had another chain attaching his waist to his handcuffs. He was sentenced to 96 years behind bars for what he did. Some people thought this was way overboard and felt sorry for Zachary, and it was suspected that his father had been being nasty towards him in some way, and he believed he had to take action against his father to protect his siblings. It's unknown whether this is true or not, but what do you think? Should Zach have gone to jail, or is he way too young? One thing's for sure, he looks terrified of prison in those images. We're not sure if it was due to the guilt of his crime or the fear of him being locked up. Next up is Lionel Tate. This criminal kid is very unique. The reason why is because he is the youngest ever kid to be given a life sentence. When he was just 12 years old, he was asked to babysit 6-year-old Tiffany Eunice. The kids ate dinner and were watching TV when suddenly they began wrestling, likely not with Tiffany's consent. Lionel was 170 pounds, while Tiffany was just 48 pounds. This meant he easily beat her and caused her to pass away. He headlocked her and smashed her head into the side of a table when suddenly she stopped breathing. An expert said the fight was an equivalent of a fall from a 5-story building thanks to the injuries caused. The jury was shocked by Lionel as he pled innocent. However, this didn't fool the jury and he was sentenced to life with no parole. Lionel cried when he was given his sentence, but Tiffany's family were happy that justice was served. Is this life sentence too far for a 12-year-old, or is it justified due to what he did? Next up is Petri Kurti. This boy is the youngest person to take someone else's life in the UK. And what's odd is that the person who passed away at Petri's hands was not another vulnerable kid, but a fully grown woman. He was caught on surveillance footage stomping on 47-year-old Glynis Bensley's face. He then boasted to his friends about the attack. He stamped on her face so hard a footprint mark could be seen on her cheek. However, the judge said Petri had a crazy home life and his parents didn't seem to care about rules or any responsibilities. The passing of Glynis apparently began as a robbery, but it went wrong and Petri began to stamp on her. He was sentenced to a minimum of 12 years with good behavior. But really, what are the chances of that, seeing as he's off the rails? His 20-year-old accomplice named Zoheb Majid was also sentenced to 12 years for manslaughter and robbery. In some cases on this list, you can end up feeling bad for the kids and you're not sure if their punishments are too harsh. But in this case, I can't see any good in this kid and he seems to be totally criminal. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I'm sure a lot of you guys will agree when I say it's a good thing this guy is off our streets. Next up is Alex King. This is one of the most bizarre cases on this list, and it may leave you guys kind of torn when deciding if Alex King is guilty of what he did or not. 12-year-old Alex King said he formed a relationship with his neighbor Ricky Chavez. The intimate relationship lasted for months before Ricky apparently urged Alex to hit his father with a metal baseball bat in his sleep, causing him to pass away. In court, Ricky denied being in a relationship with Alex, but admitted telling him to take a baseball bat and hit his father with it. In Alex's possessions, notes that said Ricky plus Alex in a love heart were found. He also said he did illegal substances with Ricky and played video games with him at his house a lot before causing his father's demise. Alex was sentenced to 8 years in prison, while Ricky was sentenced to 14 for his role. Ricky was also convicted of trying to cover up the crime, washing Alex's clothing which had evidence on it. Alex is now nearly 30 and he says he misses his dad sometimes, but wants to move on. So, was Alex tricked and manipulated by Ricky, or did he know exactly what was going on? Next up is Jackie Kiffmiller, but in 2011 she shocked the world, and not because of a great selfie. She took the life of her newborn son at the age of just 19. She pleaded not guilty, but the judge said she knew exactly what she was doing and how wrong it was. She showed no guilt and caused many to shake their heads and cry in court. She gave birth secretly using a home birthing kit she purchased online. She then googled things like how to give birth and how to cut umbilical cords by yourself. After the birth, she left her baby in a trash container on a random street for it to pass away. It was suspected she didn't want the embarrassment of telling her parents she got pregnant at 19, so she decided to pretend like the baby's life never even happened. She said the baby passed away before she put it in the trash container, but detectives found otherwise. In court, she tried to pin it on the baby's unknown father, but refused to give his name, so she had to take the rap and was sentenced to 110 years. Next up, we have John Venables. This is one of the most infamous child criminals the world has ever seen. In 1993, he and a friend went to a shopping mall in England. He was skipping school and eventually found himself bored at the mall. He then decided to take 2-year-old James Bulger from his mother, who was buying meat at the time. He took him to some train tracks and then took his life, leaving his body on the tracks to make it look like an accident. It's since gone down as one of the most shocking crimes in British history, with John being sentenced to 16 years behind bars. He has since been released under a new identity, and people are still trying to track him down and find him. He went back to prison briefly for some more child-related charges and was then released back into society for a second time under a second new identity. It's scary to think he could be anywhere without you even knowing, and some believe he should be kept behind bars forever. 280,000 people signed a petition to try and keep him locked up forever, but it was not successful. What do you think? Has he served his time, or is he still a danger to the world? Next up is Curtis Jones. When this kid from Florida was only 12 years old, he did the unthinkable. He decided to shoot his father's girlfriend and then left her body in the woods near his family home. He was arrested the next day as he was not ready for his crime and panicked. He even planned to do the same to his own father and a male family friend. In a journal, it was found he wrote about how he wanted to take his dad's girlfriend's life and everybody else's in his family. He was sent to a correctional department for kids while in custody, but he escaped in 2004 and was caught 24 hours later, and his escape also added an extra year onto his sentence. A judge then moved him to South Bay Correctional Facility for adults for 16 years. He was released last year and is now 29 years old. His updated mugshot was also released, and it's speculated he is now not a danger. However, some people aren't so sure and are worried he may commit more crimes. But police assure everybody he will remain on probation for life, so maybe he's not so dangerous. Next up is Christian Fernandez. This 12-year-old boy was neglected by his family as they began to only care for his younger brother David. So he did what no one ever thought he would. He snapped and took the life of his baby brother David. David was 2 years old and had already been knocked unconscious by Christian before he passed away. But in March of 2011, Christian wrestled David to the floor and knocked him unconscious again. Only this time, David never woke back up. The mother was also neglectful to David as she searched online for ways to wake him up instead of calling 911. However, she eventually took him to a hospital where he later passed away. Christian was sentenced to life and his mother was also sentenced to 14 years for neglect. But remember, Christian was neglected too, so maybe his mother should serve his sentence instead of him. But then again, he did commit one of the most heinous crimes imaginable, so perhaps justice has been served. One thing's for sure, Christian won't be out until he's at least 20 years old. Next up is Eric Smith. Eric Smith had been picked on all of his life, but one day he snapped. He took the life of a 4-year-old boy, which created a media storm because of the victim and criminal's ages, and of course the insane nature of the crime. He lured 4-year-old David Robbie into some woodlands and then took his life. He dropped some large rocks on the boy's head, which instantly caused him to pass away. Eric said he was tired of being picked on and went crazy, venting his frustration with life onto a random kid. He was arrested 7 days after Derek's body was found, and DNA linked Eric to Derek's demise. He was sentenced to life in prison, but was actually released in 2014 after serving just 9 years of his life sentence. Some say Eric got off easy considering what he did, but then again the judge says he's now reformed as he calls his crimes, quote, terrible. Also, he was being picked on so brutally to the point of madness. But then again, perhaps that doesn't make up for what he did. This is another situation where I'm sure a lot of you guys are torn. Next up we have Antonio Barbeau. This criminal kid is very surprising because of who his victim was. In 2014, Antonio hacked at his 78-year-old grandmother with a hatchet. He then ran to a bathroom and threw up. The judge said he'd never seen anything so horrific and gave Antonio 36 years behind bars, meaning he won't be out until he's at least 50. Antonio was very apologetic and was crying so much when he read his statements. His lawyer had to take over, but he also began crying. He first wanted to rob his grandma, but things went wrong. It began as his friend's idea, but he was the one who took his grandmother's life. After, they hid out in a pizza joint before being arrested. It's unclear as to how he thought he could get away with it, but he said it was a moment of sickness and madness. The judge said it was the worst crime he'd ever seen in 24 years of being a judge. But does he deserve to be locked up until the age of 50? Some think so. What about you? And that just about wraps up this video. Check out the poll in the top right corner and you can vote for the most crazy jail sentence for kids. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.